Good morning and welcome. I'm Danny Bernstein, board member at Basic Rights Oregon, and on behalf of the entire Basic Rights Oregon board, staff, and volunteers, I'm thrilled to welcome you to the ceremonial signing of HB 2673A. Passing this bill marks an important milestone in our work. We have a long history of passing LGBTQ equality bills in Oregon, and HB 2673A is our first standalone transgender equality bill. This bill is important because transgender and gender nonconforming Oregonians consistently report harassment, discrimination, and even violence when they have IDs that don't match their gender presentation. This new law creates a simple administrative option for transgender Oregonians to update their Oregon birth certificates so they can more readily have IDs that match their identity and more confidently participate in society. Many people played key roles in ensuring that this bill was brought forward and passed. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the many Oregonians who courageously shared their personal stories and insights that helped educate our public officials on how this legislation would improve the lives of transgender Oregonians. We are honored to have a number of those people with us today, and I want to take a moment to recognize 5 individuals who are particularly instrumental in passing this bill. Nola Young, Erica Wegener of Outside In, Oblio Stroman of Transponder, Jay Gibbons, and Nora Broker. Thank you. And thank you to Representative Rob Noce for being our champion and sponsoring this bill. Representative Noce continues to be our tireless advocate in Salem. And a special shout out to House Majority Leader Jennifer Williamson and Senator Arnie Roblin, who passionately testified in support of the bill. There were many other sponsors that helped move this bill forward, and we are incredibly grateful for the broad support among our legislators, particularly now as federal and state officials in other parts of the country are cynically targeting transgender communities to score political points. Your leadership is especially critical now. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to our Governor, Kate Brown, whose deep commitment to fairness, equality, and equality is part of why Oregon continues to be amongst the most transgender inclusive states in the nation.
Right on.
Your leadership is more important now than ever, and we are proud to have you representing us here in the state capitol. At this time, please welcome to the podium Representative Rob Noce.
Thank you, Danny. So they didn't tell me I was going to actually get a chance to talk, so I'll just say it's a privilege to be able to work with Basic Rights Oregon and the transgender community on this bill. It was my privilege to carry it on the House floor, and I'm honored. And I get to introduce the ceremonial signer of the bill here in just a minute. And since they didn't tell me that I was going to get to do that, Governor Brown, I'm just going to tell a little story about one of the first times I worked with you. You might not remember this. It was in your first term. I was a young lobbyist for the Oregon Student Association, and I'd only been out for maybe about a year or two as an openly gay man in this state. And we were trying to pass non-discrimination in the 1993 session, and we were not successful, unfortunately. And I probably sent you some note or something, and you wrote me back on your card, and I saved it for the longest time, and I couldn't find it this morning, unfortunately. I went looking for it. But I remember you saying to me that you said, Del Parks probably has the weight of the world on his shoulders. And that was in 1993. And so it was in 2007 when we passed the non-discrimination bill, and I just wanted to share that story with you. That's something I remember about you. And so, she's always been a good leader on these issues.
Thank you, Representative Noce. Before I begin remarks today, I want to acknowledge the horrible incident that happened last week in Portland. My heart goes out to all of the families impacted by the incident. I just want to make it very, very clear that hate and discrimination have no place in our Oregon. It's truly my privilege today to celebrate Oregon's first standalone transgender equality law. Now more than ever, it gives me great hope and encouragement that Oregonians continue to take a stand to protect the rights of every single person who calls Oregon home. We will not let hate or bigotry define who we are. We are breaking down institutional bias and discrimination to create a state that embraces and supports the diversity of our communities so that every single Oregonian has an opportunity to thrive. Throughout Oregon's history, thousands have fought for and demanded more rights for all Oregonians. And we have achieved enormous victories in Oregon to protect our LGBTQ Oregonians. Almost a decade ago, Representative Nose, many years after that 1993 legislative battle, we passed the Oregon Equality Act. Congratulations. With a little help from a federal court, we were able to extend marriage equality to all Oregonians. We banned conversion therapy. We created an LGBTQ office within the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs for the first time ever. And I was very proud last year to announce new guidelines for our schools to support transgender students across the state, 2 weeks before the federal government came out with theirs. The guidelines were developed with the extreme assistance of Basic Rights Oregon and, of course, our Oregon Department of Education. Thank you. We cannot and we will not retreat from the progress we have achieved. Individualism is at the heart of Oregon values. As a fundamental human right, government has no business dictating personal identity. I'd love to share with you the words of Nora Broker, who bravely shared their story during the bill's hearing and fiercely advocates on behalf of all trans and non-gender binary Oregonians. As a severely marginalized community, Nora said, transgender people have learned a deep mistrust for the official institutions that have for so long treated them with skepticism, scorn, or worse. It's even more daunting for groups such as transgender people of color who face marginalization on multiple fronts. A request such as posting personal information on a public bulletin board may seem trivial to many people, but for a transgender woman of color who has faced domestic abuse, that request may sound very different. HB 2673A reflects our tradition of protecting the liberty and dignity of our people. I proudly sign into law this bill, and I stand very proudly with the trans community. I also want to thank and acknowledge my good friend, Representative Nose. Thank you, Rob, for your extraordinary leadership. And Senator Monis Anderson, who carried the bill through the Senate floor. Is she here? Nope. Let's thank her anyway. All of our legislative community for your love and support, thank you very much. And I also want to extend my sincere appreciation for Basic Rights Oregon for your continued advocacy and support of our LGBTQ community. As your governor, I will continue to do everything in my power to create a safe and welcoming place for all Oregonians. Thank you. Is anybody else signing before? Have you guys signed before? All right, well, may this be the first of many.
Penmanship.
I've had a lot of practice.
Yeah, I know, practice actually makes me sloppier.
All right. Are we good? I think we're done.
We are good.
Okay.
All right.